welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast. I am your host, Kris. Welcome back. Apologies, we have not been here sooner. Tonight, I am joined by just one of my fellow hipsters. It's a sad old time. I'm joined by Josh. Good evening, Josh.
Good evening, Kris. It's a pleasure to be here as always.
Yes, we should break the fourth wall first and tell our listeners that we tried yesterday to record, didn't we? And it all went a little bit wonky. So hopefully tonight will be a bit better. We had some audio problems and some levels problems and all sorts was going on. So second time around, here we are. So we're recording this on the, what is it today? The 30th of August. So apologies if you've been waiting for us patiently. Luckily, here we are. Right, Josh, before we jump in at the deep end to look back at the weekend that was and have a little look forward to what's going on now. We will just advise a little word from our sponsors. 4 Elements Web Design. You can visit them at the website that they have, which is 4elementswebdesign.co.uk. And what do they do, I hear you ask? Well, you might be familiar with the offers of branding, web design, marketing and video production. They're all key things that everyone would need when building a beautiful website that they can be proud of to display their wonderful content. That's what the guys at 4 Elements do. Hit up Chris. He is your man. He will help you through your difficult periods, your difficult projects, and anything that you want to make look awesome. You can also find them on Twitter at 4elementsdes. So pop them a line or chuck us an email at thefootballhipsterspodcast@gmail.com. We'll forward on any referrals. And Chris, I'm sure, will do an excellent job for you with his team. So our thanks to those guys as ever. Right then, Josh, seeing as it's just the two of us, we're going to do our best to sort of muddle through the big leagues in both England, Italy, Spain, Germany and France as usual. We're going to start in the Premier League, I think, because that's where we generally start, isn't it? So let's have a look at the big four, shall we? Let's start with the game on the Saturday lunchtime, which was Manchester City opening up the weekend with a 2-1 victory at Bournemouth. That's not going to be the story, though, is it? The Raheem Sterling 97th minute winner sparked a lot of celebrations and a lot of aggro for one Sergio Aguero, if you will. What did you make of it all, Josh? The performance and the subsequent issues that came out of that game?
I think this was a really good early season game. There was still a bit of rustiness from both sides, but Bournemouth seemed to settle early on a lot quicker than the team they were hosting in Man City. Charlie Daniels with an absolutely cracking shot that I think if anybody has a look at it, I wouldn't say is contender for goal of the season, but certainly goal of the month, because he absolutely puts his laces through it, and if Ederson got anywhere near it with his hand, it would have surely have joined it on the end of the ball in the back of the net. But after that, Man City eventually got into their stride, and I think they had a 20-minute period where they just played some absolutely sublime football. If they can continue that across a larger proportion of the game, I think they'll be completely unstoppable. I can't see any team being able to contain them at their absolute pomp. The likes of Bernardo Silva, you have David Silva, of course, as well, and Kevin De Bruyne, all creating in behind Jesus, who got the first goal, and the aforementioned Raheem Sterling, who eventually got the winner. I think was unlucky to get sent off. For those who haven't seen the incident, it's a second bookable offence for, I'd say the first one he got was one of those kind of annoying tackles where he's getting quite hung up that the midfielder Harry Arter has been niggling at him all game, really, and eventually he's just lost his cool and just tripped him up unnecessarily, giving away a foul and got the yellow card. But the celebrations that occurred after, he's got it for inciting the crowd, but bearing in mind the position that he's taking up during the celebration is only 2 yards off the touchline, so he's still technically, within range of the pitch. He's not jumped into the crowd. It's the crowd that have come to him, and the stewards and policemen have missed, all the people coming onto the field. And with it being such a late winner, you can understand the jubilation from the players and the fans, because it was a certainly hard-fought victory. from that, you then end up with the Aguero incident with one of the stewards, who has now retracted his statement, probably after the fact that video footage very clearly showing that he was lying about being assaulted by Aguero came out. But overall, I think it's a very odd decision to give Sterling that second yellow. Not sure what you think about the situation.
Well, it's Mike Dean, isn't it? I mean, I do understand those that say the rules are the rules, and I do actually sympathise with those. Players do know the rules, and I think there is kind of an argument to say, well, it's gone over the top, and there's the safety. You've got to look at the issues of what happens if it prompts the other players to run onto the pitch at the same time, or other fans. So I get that, but common sense, yeah, he could have been prevailed. I do think it's a little bit wonky looking back. One thing we have to say, of course, speaking of wonky, was Charlie Daniels' wonky drive from distance to put Bournemouth in front. That was a perler. So if we take anything out of the game, that's the thing we definitely will take, as well as Man City showing that sort of fighting spirit and grit to win the game. Dare we say it's that sort of thing champions do even at this stage of the season. So good result. Good result for them, and a good result for their Manchester neighbours as well, which was the late game on the Saturday. Manchester United winning 2-0 over Leicester. 2 late goals, Marcus Rashford coming off the bench to score, as was Marouane Fellaini, albeit from a seemingly offside position. Good performances from United. What do you sort of make of them? Because a lot of the pundits, good or bad, it has to be said, sort of suggesting United are title favourites. I wasn't 100% sure I was on board with all that, if I'm completely honest. But 3 games played, no goals conceded. Was it 10 goals scored? They are impressive, aren't they? So what's the flaw? Is it just that they've played some very poor sides, or are we waiting for the flaw to come out?
Trying to kind of not jump on this bandwagon just yet of announcing that the title is going to Manchester United before September's even begun. I think we saw the other side of Manchester come absolutely flying out of the traps last season, and them get given the title very early on as well, to only eventually lose out at the end. But from what we're seeing from this Manchester United side, it's free-flowing. The build-up play is very, very impressive. Something I wouldn't expect to see from a Jose Mourinho team. There's a lot of flair in this side. Mkhitaryan looks to really have come into his own in his second season. I think they are still missing a certain something in their attack. You can see why they were looking at a player like Perisic across this window, for just someone to give them a wide outlet, because they just don't have that in the squad at the moment. And I think until they do, that could be the flaw, where teams like Leicester are going to stack a flat back 6 against them and then really overload the midfield and just stop them from really breaking through, because they were struggling up until the 70th minute, where they went to sleep at a corner and Rashford was left unmarked on the penalty spot just to tuck it past Schmeichel. And then the Fellaini goal is, there's space left open after Leicester have to break their lines and push, because their game plan of coming away with a point is now, they're not in their hands anymore. They've got to go and get a goal in order to get something from this game. But no taking anything away from Manchester United. I'm sure they will have sterner tests to come, but at the moment, I think the only thing they are missing is that wide player, just as an additional outlet, and then their squad almost looks perfect.
It is hard to find a flaw, I must confess. I was not sure about the Matic deal, but that seems to have really solidified that midfield and allows the likes of Pogba, Mkhitaryan to play sort of through the lines and give them that creative freedom. One thing that has to be said, though, as you rightly say there, I think that pass that Damari Gray just played behind Riyad Mahrez at 0-0. I wonder if that had have been in front of Mahrez and he'd have tucked it away, would we have seen a different result from this game? We'll never know, of course, but credit where credit is due. Manchester United are certainly looking Mourinho-esque, dare I say, an ominous figure marching forward. a team that certainly is not marching forward, is very much marching backwards, is Arsenal. And we'll come on to them in a second. We should talk about Liverpool, though, who dispatched Arsenal with relative ease on Sunday with a 4-0 victory. Extremely comfortable, far too comfortable for our eyes, I'm sure, but Firmino, Sane, Salah and Sturridge getting the goals that did the damage. Just focusing on Liverpool just for a minute, first of all, because credit where credit's due, they could only beat what's in front of them, albeit there wasn't a lot. They're looking decent, aren't they? I think, is it just the defence that maybe you'd have a worry about for them being genuine title contenders? Because going forwards, they seem to have pretty much everything they need.
Yeah, I think that's a problem that we're always going to see from Liverpool at the moment, is the fact that their defence looks dodgy. That being said, they have kept a good number of clean sheets. I might be right in thinking they haven't conceded a goal this season. I could be wrong, but
I think you might be right. I'll check that, but carry on. Oh, no, of course they have, because they conceded 3 to Watford on the opening day.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah, twonk.
So it must be 2 clean sheets in a row.
Yes, yeah, Palace, and who was it before that? Oh, it's escaped me. I shall have to look it up. But yes, you're right.
Yes.
Definitely Palace.
A couple of clean sheets in there, which I'm not sure is a sign of things to come. It might be just a case of a blunt attack we've seen from Palace. Only in the early stages that their attack really hasn't kind of got together yet. And the Arsenal attack was completely impotent in this game. I think they were just completely overrun in midfield, and the wing play that Liverpool have got at the moment is probably the best in the league. The fact that Firmino is dropping deep, and then you've got 4 players that are able to play long balls out to the wings, where they've got those 2 pace merchants in Mane and Salah, who can then just break the lines, get at the 3 centre-backs that were there, with then Firmino, Chan, you've also got Ronaldo, Henderson, and it looks to be Oxlade-Chamberlain now coming into the ranks to all break from deep and get into the box and try and get a goal. They've also got the likes of Lallana to come back as well, and James Milner on the bench, so they are slowly adding depth to that squad, and that's all saying without the infamous Coutinho, who at time of recording I believe still is an owner of a Liverpool shirt.
As it stands, yeah. Well,
yes.
He's in possession of a Brazil shirt at the moment, and surprisingly looks very fit, strangely. Funny that, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, he's still there for the time being. I suppose this is a good time actually to tell our listeners that because we are recording this on the 30th, we are kind of we're not avoiding transfers. We're not hiding from the things, but because so much is going to happen between the time this goes out and we are going to do another pod, hopefully this Sunday, I think is the plan. So we're kind of avoiding the transfers until the window's closed because there's going to be so much movement. We want to sort of assess it as a pod separately, don't we? So we'll kind of touch on some of the ones we know are happening, but we will get to your questions later on, but we're kind of skating over that just for the time being. So apologies for boys and girls if you're looking forward for transfer talk. Tune in Sunday. There's a tease for you. Just a brief word on Arsenal. I mean, we could go on for hours, so we will keep it brief. Mess, isn't it, really? Mess of the club at the moment. Obviously, you mentioned the Oxlade-Chamberlain deal is set to go through. They've been looking to get other players out the door. Suggestions that Alexis Sanchez is unhappy, amongst others in the squad. It is a bit of a mess, isn't it? And that performance really did sum up how things are in North London right now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a crisis brewing, so to speak, in North London. I think that this could be just down to just a poor start to the season, but the performance that came with this game looks to say that there was something else externally that may have caused this issue. But I think it's not something that we can really dwell on until the squad is settled, because I think that's part of the issue, that there is so much talk about this squad being broken up for good or for bad that is really holding them back at the moment, and some odd decisions in terms of lineups certainly not helping that situation. But for now, I'm personally, as a fan, keeping the faith, and I still think that Arsenal can have a very good season, and this isn't necessarily as poor a start as we may have or may have had in the past.
I'm trying. I'm trying to keep the faith, Josh. I'm fast falling off the faith wagon, but I'm trying my very best to keep the faith. But let's move quickly on from Arsenal because none of us wants to hear me pick up the scissors mid podcast. So we'll move on very hastily from Arsenal now. But we should talk a little bit of Tottenham and Chelsea as well. Chelsea with a 2-0 victory over Everton on the Sunday. Fabregas and Morata with what seemed to be a fairly routine victory in the end. I think this maybe gives us a glimpse of what we're going to get from Everton this season, in that they've got a very tough schedule with the Europa League games. They're still blooding in a squad. It's changing all the time. But there's quality there. So I think maybe this will be the levelling out of Everton against some of the bigger sides. We shall see. But Chelsea back on the right lines. And Spurs kind of spurs themselves at Wembley again. Last minute equaliser from Manu and Ross have watched a lot of Chris Wood, who's arrived from Leeds in this window. And a 92nd minute equaliser. So my question to you is pretty straightforward. Is it in the heads of the Spurs players, or is it just one of those things that the media are blowing a bit out of proportion and Spurs are still getting used to the playing surface, the size, etc.?
I think if we listen to Pochettino, I think he's currently saying it's a coincidence that Tottenham have had poor results at Wembley this season. I don't think it's a time for him yet to start doing a ritual on the pitch, going into each corner flag, unzipping his trousers and weeing in each corner just to exercise the ground. But I think at the moment that it is unfortunate. Burnley have started the season very, very well, and they just appeared to have just lost their composure near the end of the game. Whether or not this will continue any further, I'm not too sure. I still think Tottenham will get a win at Wembley. I can't see them going through the whole season not getting a win there. So I don't think this will last for too much longer, but while it does, the media are certainly going to be spinning it and throwing it back in the players' faces.
Yeah, it does just seems a bit of an odd one, doesn't it? I think obviously Spurs are another club that will be active before the window closes. They may be one or two short, but yeah, it just seems a bit of a weird hoodoo, doesn't it? Weird kind of thing that maybe it's got to seep into the mind a little bit. But you should credit Burnley though. I mean, two big, tough away games in London this season already, and they've taken 4 points. So fair play to Burnley. Don't think anyone would have predicted that going into either game. So well done to Sean Dyche and his men. I'm sure he'll be looking to continue that throughout the rest of this season. That's kind of the quote-unquote big clubs. We will scoot through a couple of the results elsewhere. Crystal Palace still in turmoil under Frank de Boer. It doesn't seem to be getting any better for him. Another defeat at home to Swansea this time. Swansea, who at the time of recording have made a rather large loan purchase from Bayern Munich in one Renato Sanchez, which would be exciting for Swans fans. That Clement Ancelotti link-up coming into play there. Goal for Tammy Abraham. Just quickly, do you expect him to succeed in the Premier League? Because he looks to have the attributes, doesn't he?
Yeah, he was linked heavily to Brighton across the window, as well as ultimately going to Swansea. It was one of those players that, personally, if I was a promoted side, I wouldn't risk it on. But where you've got the likes of Llorente at Swansea, so just in case Abraham couldn't do it, because we have seen young strikers in the Championship score a hatful of goals and then come up a level and not get them. Thinking particularly of Patrick Bamford being a key example of that, especially being a ex-Chelsea loanee as well. But with Abraham, yeah, looking at him, he was one of the few players that I saw live last season that really impressed me. Just the physical attributes of him are just incredible. And I think with him still growing, he can really turn into a big striker in the Premier League in general. While he can try and get the goals, I'm not sure what his goal will be for this season in terms of return. I would think at least double figures in the league would be a good return for him. But it's one of those with a young player, it could be the only goal he gets all season, whereas it could be the start of something incredibly special. I really can't say at the moment, but from the moment he does look to have, to be that full package.
Yeah, I like the look of him. I do. He's young and he'll go through a period of time where it might not go for him, but he does look like he's got something about him, and hopefully he has a good season for a youngster. But I say more drama for Palace. Huddersfield Southampton was a 0-0 draw. In the interest of Ross not being here, we won't talk about that one too much. I don't think there's a lot to say in truth. Your beloved Brighton, 0-0 draw, first points of the Premier League away at Watford at Vicarage Road. The Miguel Britos tackle, he since apologised for attempting to leave Anthony Knockhart's leg embedded in the ground. It's a bad one when even the front row of the stand of the home supporters get up and go, "Ooh, ouch, that doesn't look good." Poor challenge though, wasn't it? Really, really poor. Deservedly a red card.
Yeah, if we see a tackle worse than that this season, I would absolutely be shocked because it was an awful tackle. Everybody involved is lucky that more contact wasn't made with Anthony Knockout because that could have been career-ending. Really, the speed and just lack of control that Britos has in that tackle, and then the goal to even protest the decision was just really confusing. But this is overall just quite a bittersweet point for Brighton. I think if this was 11v11, that I think a point would be a good result for Brighton. But playing against 10 men for the majority of the game, Britos getting sent off in the 24th minute, would have hoped that Brighton would have found a way through and got a goal. So this could be ultimately a result that Brighton could rue come near the end of the season, but certainly showed that they've got lots of creativity in this team, but they just need a striker. And at the moment, Murray is out injured. He's out for a couple of months, and I think Hamed could come good, but with a team like Brighton, with their first season in the Premier League, you really need your striker to hit the ground running to get those points on the board early on. And then I think you can allow someone like Hamed to adapt and start getting goals.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's I do think it's like you say, the centre forward is key for Brighton, isn't it? To get goals, that's going to be absolutely key. So, yeah, I'm completely with you on that one. But nevertheless, it's a point. It's a start. You've got to start somewhere. And it was a point for West Brom and Stoke on Sunday as well as Jay Rodriguez. Good to see him back on the fitness and goal scoring charts with the opener, and then Peter Crouch laughing as he headed the ball into the net for the equaliser after a mix-up between Hegazi and Foster, sharing the points. And I don't think I've missed any games. I think that was the weekend that was in the Premier League. Obviously, we're in international break now, so we have got a week or so away. But two juicy fixtures probably to look at for when we return. We've got Leicester hosting Chelsea. In fact, three fixtures actually. Leicester hosting Chelsea at 3 o'clock on the Saturday, the 9th of September. Everton hosting Spurs. That will be very interesting. Probably the biggest one of the lot, Manchester City Liverpool, is the 12:30. Would it be an exaggeration to say if either team loses that game, it's a hammer blow to title hopes, or is it still a bit early for that?
I think it is a bit too early to be, writing off a team's season, fundamentally their fourth game into it. Both we've seen good things and bad things from City and Liverpool already in this season, so I don't think we can call too much into it. I'm just hoping for it to be an absolute smashing game. This looks a bit like the Leicester Arsenal game that we saw that opened the season just a few weeks ago. That one of those that could be just goals galore and just some fantastic attacking football. But I'm sure, as I've said that, it will probably be 0-0 in the worst game of football that's ever been. I really think that is a key fixture for it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, yeah, and hopefully it will be an open affair because neither team particularly good in defence, so we shall see what comes of that. But that's for another day. So we shall transition now into a little bit of EFL talk, and this is where I get to rest my vocal cords for a couple of minutes. So I shall hand the reins over to you to talk a little Championship, League One, and League Two, and then maybe we'll splice a few questions in that are sort of English football related at the end of this segment. So I shall hand over to you. What has been going on in the weekend of EFL action?
Cool, thank you, Chris. So yeah, as you say, we're starting the Championship with Ipswich, who unfortunately stumbled in their early season form, falling to a 2-0 defeat at home to the resurgent Fulham. Over at Cardiff, though, they've maintained their 100% record by coming from behind to beat QPR 2-1 at the Cardiff City Stadium. We've got Hoylett and Bamba providing the necessary firepower there for Neil Warnock's men to continue the great run that they're on at the moment. It's now 3 out of 4 games for Middlesbrough without a goal, for a team that I think we all said and have seen heavily invest in their strike force. Monk's really got a job on his hand over this break to make sure they don't lose any further ground, because I think at the beginning of the season we had them favourites to be going up, and at the moment they are losing ground on those early leaders. Over to Barnsley, who put to bed the old adage of you don't win anything with kids, as youngsters Ugbo, who's on loan from Chelsea, and Harvey Barnes, they're both 18 and 19 respectively, were on the score sheet as they put 3 past a very sorry Sunderland team. Now looking towards the bottom, a game with 30 shots, you would assume Brentford versus Wolves would have been an absolute goal fest, but a 0-0 draw was the result in the end that helped take Brentford off the bottom of the table and hopefully start the turn in fortunes for the side that I predicted to have quite a good season. So I'm sorry, Brentford fans, that I said you'd have a good season. You've had the start you had, but hopefully that will turn around. Brentford at the bottom managed to displace a Bolton side who on Friday night went down 4-0 to a Hull side that looks to be ever improving under the tutelage of Slutsky, with Jared Bowen getting a very impressive brace in the game, doubling his tally for the season. He looks to be one of the players to really look out for this season because he looks to have started and hit the ground running. Over to League One, go to Gillingham, who finally scored a goal this season, and just like buses, Tommy's obliged with 3 of them. Unfortunately, 3 goals wasn't enough for all 3 points, but only 1 against Southend United in that kind of Kent area derby. However, we did get some impressive wins from Blackburn and Peterborough this weekend, which certainly helps propel them up the table. The latter managing to take top spot after 4 games and maintaining a 100% record. Their victims, Northampton Town, having the opposite of fortunes as they now prop up that division. Dropping into League 2 quickly. Firstly, we have to take a quick look at the promoted sides. Forest Green Rovers, so we spoke about them last week. They've hit the earth, or crashed down to earth, after winning their first ever professional game of football with a 5-1 loss away to Colchester, who in turn managed to register their first win of the season. Staying towards that end of the table, Grimsby Town have continued the trend of ending each game with less men than they have started with, by ending their 3-2 loss at home to Wickham with 10 men. That is now 5 games in a row that they have had a man sent off due to ill discipline. It's absolutely staggering because they haven't managed to end a game this season without having a man sent off. But I'm sure that's going to come to an end at some point. Otherwise, they won't be able to field a team come December. And finally some good news for Harry Kewell's Crawley Town, who finally managed to secure their first win of the season and of his managerial career respectively. Uh, that's it for the EFL roundup this week. Kris, back over to you for some of the key European stories and questions.
Yes, indeed. I'm going to give you a choice, actually, Josh. Thank you very much for that EFL breakdown. I'm sure Ross is nodding along to himself there. In fact, Ross does feature in our show a little bit later on. We should explain, by the way, all the hipsters, they haven't flown the nest. Joel's been away on business this week. Danny's just lazy, so, Danny's never here. John's still working. James is away on uni assignment, and Ross's internet is poo. So yeah, we haven't cast them away. We promise. We're all still here. But I'll give you a choice, Josh. Would you like to answer a few questions that are English football based now, or would you like to crack on to the European bit? It's entirely up to you.
Let's grab a couple of questions. Just mix
Go
it
on
up a
then.
bit.
I'm going to rely on you to read these questions out because I've been so busy that I've not seen our lovely listeners' questions. So I've let you loose on the Twitter account to pull the best from me. So if we don't get to your questions, boys and girls, please give us a nudge. We'll try and get to them next week. So what have we got, Josh?
Okay, let's grab one from. Let's go for a general football question. This is from our friend of the pod, Tom. His Twitter handle was 5-star flips, but he's changed it, and I can't remember what it is now off the top of my head. But let's go with his question. Looking at the large number of deals like the James move to Bayern, where the player is initially loaned with the option to buy for a larger fee later, do you think this is going to become common practice, given the inflated prices and teams not willing to risk a big money signing potentially being underwhelming?
Absolutely. Hello, Kylian Mbappe, because that's the other big name that seems to be going down this route, isn't it, this week, that talk of a fee being agreed with PSG, but where they essentially loan their nearest rival's best player, or one of their best players, or one of the most touted players in the world. They loan him only to buy him next summer with the option of, it's essentially an obligation to buy for 180 million euros. So, yeah, I do think this is the way round FFP. This is the modern day problem. When you put rules in place, teams will find ways around them, whether it be legal or illegal, allegedly. Sort of offshore accounts and whatnot have been used over the years. So I do think we are going to see a growing trend in this. I also think Arsene Wenger has mentioned this recently about players running down their contracts. I think we're going to see more big name, quote unquote, players running down contracts, letting the contracts expire, and then being free to choose where they go because they can demand higher wages because the clubs are not having to pay a transfer fee for them anymore. So yeah, I'm hoping that this doesn't become an awkward trend. But I'm really hoping that that there's a way that the rules can be put into place so that clubs can't just pillage all the best young players and all the best players from the their nearest rivals, because we will just end up with three team leagues max moving forwards, and then what happens next is a European Super League. So yeah, I don't know if you got a view on that, but I think that's probably the way we're going, sadly.
Yeah, I totally agree. Until they kind of restructure that FFP, then we are going to see something like this coming in. I think we saw it happen actually a couple of seasons ago. I'm thinking Juan Cuadrado from Chelsea back to Juve.
Juventus, yeah.
That was a 3-year loan.
Yep,
Ultimately.
that's exactly it.
And it's the same kind of thing there, that they've kind of spaced it out, but it's also, I think, Premier League wages have also led to this kind of thing where, they want to get the player off the books, but they just need the wages gone, really. Having to supplement a little bit is, a lesser of two evils for them, and I think that's what we saw with Cuadrado, that Chelsea were still paying a percentage of his earnings just to make sure that he was off the books and they could continue to operate properly, because we are seeing teams now, especially again at time of recording, Arsenal, who don't have space left in their wage bill to actually bring any new players in. Got plenty of money elsewhere, but because of FFP rules, they've got to try and find a creative solution or get more players out of the door to make sure they can bring in better ones, or even just sign current players onto new contracts. And I think that's one of the bigger problems we've got in the game at the moment.
It's madness, isn't it? Absolute madness. But ways round things, and that this is the trouble. But yeah, so that's a good question there, Tom. Thank you very much for that. I must remember, actually, I'll ask you this one because we had a question come in via email, which I must not forget. So I'll ask you this one from Kris H, who regularly sends us an email. So thank you, Kris. He says, "Hi guys, I'm trying to figure out the perceived flaws in Aguero's game per Pep Guardiola. Doesn't he consistently perform and produce? Question mark. Perhaps I'm simply not football astute enough, but being from Vancouver, where football refers to the oddball Canadian variation, and American football, albeit our game does involve the foot a lot more than American football, which is somewhat ironic given, somewhat ironically played primarily with the hands." But he says, "Care to discuss where Aguero may be coming short in Guardiola's estimations? What is it? Why do you think Pep doesn't really favour Aguero? We saw him start Gabriel Jesus over Aguero at the weekend, for example."
Thanks for the question, Kris. It's a really good one. Also from a city that I spent some time in over the summer, Vancouver. What a lovely place, I will add, as well. But back to the subject at hand and Aguero. I believe I remember hearing Pep Guardiola with, I think it was last season, saying what his problems were with that man. It's more to do with what he looks for in his forwards is someone who can not only score goals but contribute to the overall build-up play. It's something you'll also see from Harry Kane specifically as well, that if you look at their goal-scoring records, their number of assists is really, really low. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's always a bad thing, but when you've got someone who plays such a total football style that Guardiola does, that having that kind of player that will also link up the play is also really key, as well as just finishing off moves. So I think that's where we saw at the weekend, where you had the likes of Gabriel Jesus start up front alongside Raheem Sterling, who came in, both of them grabbing the goals, but ultimately helping to create that kind of carousel of football where they'd really just go out wide, cut back in, and help link up the play back to their playmakers and ultimately carve the team open. And I think that's his biggest issue with Aguero, that he doesn't always do the, not necessarily dirty work, but just help the team as well as helping himself through not always just scoring goals, but through influencing the play in other ways.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think sometimes the manager just doesn't fancy a player. Like, for whatever reason, he just doesn't fancy him. And Pep is, people obviously know my views on Pep, but I do often get the feeling with Pep that he's a very ego-driven manager, not necessarily always in a bad way, but I think he would much rather bring in his own player in Jesus and say, "Look what I've done," rather than just take a player that we know can do it already in Aguero and sort of just build on that, if that makes sense. I do wonder if maybe there's an element of a pride project involved in Jesus getting the nod as well. But yeah, good question that, Kris, and good analysis. And yeah, keep your questions coming. We like those in email, so feel free to keep those coming through. Any others that you want to tackle at this point from the English side at all, Josh? Any others that come up?
I don't think we have anything that is particularly English orientated at the moment. There's one about Arsenal. We could do that, but I think we'll leave that one to the end because it also talks about one Barcelona.
Okay, so we will. Yes, I think we've asked our good man Joel about this, haven't we? So we'll come back to that one in a second. But in that case, we'll transition into our European roundup then. Do our best to wing our way through what we've seen between us. We're actually going to start in Spain. And in Joel's absence, he's sent me a few notes here. I saw a couple of games myself. We're going to start with Real Madrid and Valencia, who played out a thrilling game on the Sunday night. I actually watched this. It's a really, really good game. Real Madrid 2, Valencia 2, it finished. Asensio was at the double for Real Madrid. He got both goals. Obviously only 21, scored the late equaliser when it seemed that they were set for defeat, in fact. He was clearly the best player on the day. Gareth Bale, not so good. Still sort of talk that he could shift on, although his agents have denied that. So Asensio grabbing the spotlight at the moment. Real took the lead through Asensio, as we said, and Jeffrey Kondogbia, remember him? He he got the second goal after Carlos Soler had equalised. So at that point, Valencia were on track for a very sort of well, not a shock, maybe not shock's the wrong way, but surprise result, certainly at that stage. Gareth Bale, as you mentioned before, was then substituted off. He was booed off the pitch, which sort of suggests that maybe the worm is turning a little bit. And you have to feel that if Real Madrid went for another Galactico, he'd be the one to make way. But with Mbappe heading to Paris, it seems Bale will get another season at least, whether he'll play every week, that's another story. But yeah, Valencia really impressed me, I must admit. We've been quite down on them, haven't we, on this podcast? And you never really know what you're going to get from Valencia. I don't even think Joel knows what you're going to get from Valencia. But some of the players they brought in, some of the players they're still looking to bring in this window, I think there is potentially something happening in Valencia. So we shall see whether that continues or will they go off a cliff again. We shall see. But good result for them, very much so. First drop points for Real Madrid this season. And as far as some of the other results in La Liga this weekend, there was another game I watched, which was between Atletico Madrid and Las Palmas. Did you see the score for this one?
I have seen the score. I couldn't tell you what any of the goals looked like.
Well, Atletico were 2 up in 5 minutes. Angel Correa, who was challenged by Diego Simeone to be the man this season, he certainly started that well. He got the opener, and Yannick Carrasco got the second after 5 minutes. Awful defending for Las Palmas, who look in trouble to me this season. Jonathan Cagliari, you might remember him from West Ham, or maybe not. He got the goal back, and he thought, oh yeah, game on, there's a good half an hour to go, only for Koke to score an absolute worldie, curling in from the far left-hand corner of the box into the top corner. That was for 3-1 just 4 minutes later. Koke then scored an overhead sort of scissors kick to make it 4-1 on 75. And as if that wasn't enough, big Thomas Partey decided to join the party with 3 minutes to go to notch 5. So 5 goals for Atletico Madrid. You never see that, do you? And they were impressive, it has to be said. On the night in that game as well. Athletic Bilbao, they clinched their first win of the season with a victory over 10-man Eibar. It's a 1-0 victory thanks to Aduriz. He's still scoring goals, bless him, he's still doing it. Sevilla got a 83rd minute winner in their trip to Getafe. I watched this game as well. It wasn't a great spectacle, but Paulo Piqui Ganso got the winning goal. Really, really like. So sort of a little bit of a back flick, kind of back heel type of goal, which broke the deadlock and got the points for Sevilla. And Joel's very own Barcelona, they won 2-0 at Alaves. It was basically the Messi show. He hit the woodwork 3 times, and I think I'm right in saying he also missed a spot kick in this game. I think I'm right in saying. But yes, Messi did actually break the deadlock himself in 55 minutes with a deflected goal. That was his 350th La Liga goal for Barcelona. It's not bad, is it? And then he got the second as well to kill off Alaves when they were sort of pushing for a goal. Did you know that Zidane's son came on to make his debut in this game?
I knew he'd gone somewhere. I didn't know he was Alaves. I can't remember his first name. Off the top of my head.
Yes. Well, there you go. He's he made his debut in this game. Imagine the pressure. Imagine the pressure on this kid, though. I mean, like, can you just imagine being Zidane's son? I mean, it's just crazy, isn't it? Like, I hope he's given time, but you know.
Yeah, it's up there with Pele's kids, and I'm sure Messi's son, Aguero's son, is going to have a similar issue. Bearing in mind he's the grandson of Diego Maradona and his godfather is Lionel Messi. That boy's got to be good at football. Yeah,
and it's one of those that the pressure is on, but hopefully he'll be given time to just adjust and sort of find his feet in La Liga, if you will. So best of luck to him. The name certainly fits the shirt. That's one thing to say. As far as the other results, Sociedad with a 3-0 victory over Villarreal on the Friday night. Willian Jose, Xavi Prieto and Juanmi with the goals there. Betis beating Vigo by 2-1. Vigo look in trouble this season, has to be said. They went ahead but lost the game. Fidal with the winning goal with 13 to play. Leganes with another victory. Good result for them. Mantovani with the winner against Espanyol. We've mentioned the other games, I think. Of course, Girona and Levante, the other two. Levante 2-2 draw with Deportivo on the Saturday, and Girona with a very, very welcome victory over Malaga. Alcala with a goal after 28 minutes. So that's your La Liga done for this week. We hope to have Joel back very soon, so I'm sure he will fill us in on a few bits and bobs with La Liga. We got a few questions later on as well, including a mammoth answer, which you're all over, Josh. So I'll leave that to you. Let me ask you: did you see any German football this weekend at all?
9. I think that's the only response I can give.
Not
on
all
that
9
one.
games, then.
No, not all 9 fixtures. I don't believe I saw any anyway.
Okay. Well, I will run you through the basics and maybe see if I can drag a question or two out of you. But Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund are both sort of joint top halves in 2 games. That won't surprise you. Bayern, impressive in long spells against I actually thought a really well organised Werder Bremen side. I watched this one live on Saturday afternoon. Lewandowski got the two goals in the end. I think 72nd and 72nd and 75th minutes. He's still keeping up his high standards. A rather more routine victory for Dortmund, 2-0 over Hertha BSC in the evening game. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang with a goal, and Nuri Sahin, who seems to be rebuilt in this Dortmund side. He looks like the player that they sold to Real Madrid all those years ago. My question to you, though, is Christian Pulisic. You probably have heard enough about him to know that he's quite the talent. Is he kind of the next big name that we could see being linked with the Galacticos of this world, do you think? Because he's tearing up trees every time he plays for Dortmund. He seems to control their midfield for them.
He does. I'm sure we had him as a hipster's choice as well.
We
at
did,
some
yes.
point. Young American. I'm not sure if he's still a winger. I think he's finding a kind of new role, but with the way that Dortmund play, you've got someone like Marco Reus who isn't strictly a winger, is more like a wide playmaker, and he's picked up a similar role there at Dortmund. I really enjoy watching him play. I think there was talks of him going to various different places across this window, but I think sticking at Dortmund at the moment, they're a club that can develop a player like him, and I think he'll become a huge star, not just because of the fact that he is American, and I think he is truly that star that since I think Landon Donovan, that the American people will get behind and really support through their career.
Yeah, I agree. I think he is the next big name as far as the American soccer goes. So yeah, good luck to him. Good wins for the 2 big guns then. Leipzig got a 4-1 victory over Freiburg. That's a noticeable result from the weekend. A couple of goals for Timo Werner. He's back amongst the goals. Freiburg not so good. They actually took the lead, but got bounced out of that game. Stuttgart promoted side, another win for them. Holger Badstuber, remember him? Formerly Bayern Munich, he got the winner in the 53rd minute, and Augsburg also with a decent point at home to Borussia Mönchengladbach. The last-minute equaliser from Cordova, managing to finish off that game with a 2-2 draw. Leverkusen and Hoffenheim also played out a 2-2 draw. Good game this. Kramaric and Ut for Hoffenheim, Wendell and Kelim Bellarabi, who else for Leverkusen, who are probably set to lose a couple of players in this window, but we shall keep an eye on that. Wolfsburg did Derby with a winner against Eintracht Frankfurt, the mighty Eagles. Boo. With that game as well, Hanover also beating Schalke, rather surprisingly. Jonathas with the winner on the Sunday. But the only other game I wanted to just ask you about, or just get your thoughts on, Hamburg. They won away from home. Absolutely nuts. Winning away from home? No way. Andre Hahn, Bobby Wood and Lewis Holtby. 3-1 victory away at Cologne, whichever you prefer. Is this finally the season that Hamburg actually are decent, or should we reserve judgment for a little bit yet?
Yeah, I would reserve judgment on Hamburg. We've certainly been stung by hoping big things from them before, so I want to be a bit safer in my prediction, but the fact that they've managed to get this kind of duck off their back of winning away from home certainly won't hold them back when it comes to having a decent season. I think in general they should be safe. I don't think they'll be struggling this season, but I think if they can continue the kind of run they're doing this, bear in mind they also got the win after losing a man after 59 minutes to 2 yellow cards. So to manage to get the game wrapped up before then, and hold on for that length of time, I think was absolutely fantastic from them, and is the kind of mentality that they'll need for this season.
Yeah, Hamburg, you just never know what you're going to get. They are the ultimate bag of tricks. So, yeah, that was the weekend that was in Germany. Again, if we've got any questions, we'll nip back to that in a second. Let's try another league with you. Did you see any Italian football this weekend? Go on, you must have seen something.
Honestly, I think I might have done. Don't be surprised,
Oh,
listeners. My only excuse is I had a wedding at the weekend over the bank
I will let you
holiday,
off.
so I didn't really see a lot of games that occurred, especially on the Sunday. Fortunately for myself, I think in the
Yes.
end, but I did manage to spot a couple of the goals go in.
Yes, I did as well. I did see the Sunday action, so we can talk about that in a second. Was it Saturday the 26th? Benevento lost to Bologna 1-0. So that was who was that? Got the winner. Donza got the winner there. Did you see this Genoa Juventus game? 4-2. Or did you hear about this game?
I did hear about the Dybala hat-trick that occurred in it and a bizarre Pjanic own goal.
Yes, yeah, it was a very good finish. But they were what 2-0 down after 2-0 down after 7 minutes and came back with a Dybala hat trick and Cuadrado goal in between that to win 4-2. Have you been impressed with Juve? Because I know a lot of people say this is a season of transition for them, but do you still think they're going to be the team to beat in Italy?
Yeah, I do think Juventus have still got that strong squad that they'll always have. There's still a little bit of time for them to add to it. I know they're still linked with some fairly big names within the game, but looking at the other teams that are going to be the contenders to them, I think they'll have a tougher title race than we've had for a couple of years. But is that a drop off from Juve, or is that everybody else just coming back up to a reasonable standard to really challenge them? I'm not too sure at the moment, but there haven't been a huge amount of losses from Juventus really in terms of this window. Um, Bonucci has obviously left the club. I think that's the major outgoing they've had, but they've just brought in Howardez off the
Mm.
top of my head. I
Has that gone
believe
through? I know they were negotiating, but I don't know if it's gone through. But yeah,
I
it's a good
think it
signing if they
went
get him.
through earlier this evening. So they have strengthened in that defensive lineup with him going, and they obviously had Benacia, was it, that's still there,
Yes.
who's come back, who's taken that kind of place in the middle of that back three. So they've continued at least having BBC at the back for now. Uh,
Priorities, yeah, get the wording in. That's the priority, isn't it? But yeah, no, yeah, it's hard to tell Juventus because they are going through a bit of a rebuild, and there's so many sides I think this season that have got good signings in that Serie A could well be the league to watch this season. So there's a lot of eyes on it. There was certainly a lot of eyes in Roma on Saturday night. Cracking game. This Inter running out 3-1 winners. It was the old Inter for half an hour. Edin Dzeko put Roma in front, and Inter were all over the shop, but they came back strong. 2 goals from Mauro Icardi, who else? And Vecino, the new signing from Fiorentina, 3-1 victory for Inter in the end. What does this say? I mean, dare we say it? Are Inter kind of back? I mean, they've been impressive under Spalletti since he's come in. Roma seems to have gone backwards a little bit with they've got Monchi, of course, but the signings have been largely underwhelming. But yeah, dare we say that Inter could be in a title race this season, or again, is it too early?
I think the two Milan sides have had absolutely cracking transfer windows. Milan going absolutely hell for leather at the beginning of the window, and Inter kind of getting to the party a little bit late, but still making some significant moves in this window. I think there's still more to come as well from them to really overhaul that squad. But the performances they've put in early season look to be, almost ominous. If they can continue that, I think they are one of the teams that can push Juventus. I don't think they'll be the one that does it for the duration of the season. I think there's another couple of candidates that I can see that will be the nearest contenders to them, but they're certainly in that chasing pack.
Mm. Yeah, so it was a really good performance second half in particular from Inter, and as I say, it's potentially potentially something happening at Inter. We shall see. I don't want to count my chickens. Torino got a 3-0 victory on Sunday over Sass. Belotti with another goal there. He's been linked with Monaco, but I think he'll probably stick around. Lajic and Obi with the other goals there. Lazio back on track. Immobile and Milinkovic-Savic with a last-minute winner over Chievo. Crotone and Hellas Verona drawing 0-0. Fiorentina losing at home to Sampdoria. They've not had a good start at all, Fiorentina. Again, is this one of the bigger clubs that are in trouble, do you think, based on how they started the season? Because they do look a little bit short squad-wise, and results have followed that.
Yeah, definitely. Fiorentina did lose a couple of key signings as well, or key players across this window. Bernardeschi was gone to Juve, and obviously we also had Vecino, who's gone to Inter as well. I think there's two off the top of my head that I can think of. They have lost players and haven't really replaced them properly. So I do agree. I think it could be a long old season for La Viola.
Yeah, completely agree. Still got nice kits, but yeah. Okay, and the other results for the weekend: Milan 2-1 victory over Cagliari. They roll on. Crotone, this is this new wonder kid, isn't it, that everyone's talking about? He got the opener, and Suso with the winner. Samuel to João Padro goal. 3-1 victory for Napoli over Atalanta. Zielinski, Mertens and Rog with the winner there. And a win for Spal. Borriello and Lazzari and Rizzo with a late goal. A 3-2 victory over Udinese. That's a massive, massive result, isn't it, for Spal, who have crept into Serie A almost unnoticed.
Yeah, absolutely. As I think we said last week, we didn't really know a huge amount about them when they appeared in the league. Their man Benevento,
yeah,
who kind of came in, and yeah, I think these are one of the games that you would hope that if they've got any chance of staying up, they'd have to win, especially against Udinese. I think they're one of those sides that you look at and you think, yeah, if we're going to get points at home, we should try and get them against a side like this.
Yeah, it's a huge result for such a small club. And yeah, of course, which is the club that we said we would follow? It was Benevento, wasn't it? That we were gonna follow the fortunes of. So yes, we will. We'll keep following them with their awesome crest with the witch on it and all of that. So don't you worry, we'll be keeping you across the Benevento action. I need to watch one of their games actually soon. So when I do, I'll report back. Right, that's Italy done. We'll finish in France then, and then wrap up with a couple of your listener questions. Naturally, I shall take the lead here because I've seen quite a lot of this. PSG with a 3-0 victory over St Etienne on the Friday night. Not a big surprise to many. Maybe one of the big surprises is Neymar was not on the score sheet in this game. But St Etienne put up a pretty brave performance for long periods, but ultimately didn't take their chances. And 2 goals from Edison Cavani, 1 from the spot. Sandwiching a Thiago Motta goal. That's rare as rocking horse poo, that is. But good win for PSG, who climb Liga to the top of the table, of course. 4 wins out of 4, as you'd expect. Monaco, though, matched them stride for stride. A 6-1 victory over Marseille on the Sunday night. Absolutely crushed Rudy Garcia's men, who made the rather silly comment of saying, well, we lost 4 here last year, it couldn't get any worse. Yeah, newsflash, it got worse. So yeah, goals from Kamil Glick, Radamel Falcao, 2, and Fabinho penalty, Sidibe and Diakabi with the goals there. Monaco looking every bit as good as they were last season. Whether it lasts, we'll have to see. But they've been really impressive so far this term with their new acquisitions. So well done them. Angers with a draw over Marcelo Bielsa's Lille, also on the Sunday. More drop points for Marcelo. All is not well at Lille at the moment. It hasn't really kicked into gear, that project, yet. Depraville, who they might lose in this window, got the equaliser after Koulibaly had put them in front. Guingamp with a 2-0 victory over Strasbourg. Good result that for Guingamp. Jimmy Briand amongst the scorers there. Bordeaux continuing to impress this season. 2-1 victors over Troyes. Another goal for Yannis Sankare, who's found his goal-scoring boots this season. I think that's his 4th this season, if I'm not mistaken. Nantes and Lyon played out a 0-0 draw. Amiens beat Nice 3-0. Real surprise, this one. Gael Kakuta. Remember that name, Josh, by any chance?
Yes, I do.
Well, he got on the
Mm.
score sheet. I don't know if you've seen this, but lovely free kick to open the scoring. I thought Cardinal could have done better, but it was a lovely free kick, has to be said. So yeah, good victory that for Amiens. Went on to secure the victory with 2 goals from Konate late on. So well, one the 28th, one late on in the 88th minute. So very good result for the newcomers, who seem to be doing all right thus far. Caen beat Metz 1-0 as well. Good result that for Caen at home. Rotterdam with the winner, and Dijon cut the mustard. Hey, there's that joke again this season. Benjamin Janot, who signed from Lorient in the summer, scoring the 2 winning goals past his old Lorient teammate Benjamin Lecomte, who also left Le Melo for Montpellier in the summer. So that's a nice subplot there. And finally, Toulouse with a thriller, actually a 3-2 victory over for Pascal Duprat over Rennes. 3-2 victory. Friend of the show, Rich Allen's Rennes, of course. Wasn't a good night for Rich, though, bless him. But a good performance and a good result that for Toulouse in the circumstance. I don't know if you've seen Issa Diop's goal from the corner in that game. Have you seen that goal at all?
I have not. Sorry.
It's well worth a look. It's a stunning sort of it's a volley, but from a corner, from a flick up in the air. It's a fantastic sideways on volley into the roof of the net from a centre back. Pretty impressive stuff. So yes, lovely little take from him. So that's France done for the week then. We are not going to pick games of the week out for next week because there is no games, of course, because we've got international football. And unless we're reporting on a World Cup or European Championships, international football doesn't exist on the Football Hipsters podcast. So we're not going to talk about it. Aren't we mean, Josh? But what we are going to talk about to finish the show is a few more listeners' questions. So shall we begin with the one with the mammoth answer? Would you like to explain to our listeners what we're referring to?
Yes. So we got a question in from Tim, who's at Tim James 1989. Bit of a big question at the moment. Who's in a bigger crisis? Keeping it relative to recent achievement, of course. Arsenal or Barcelona? Kris, have you got any quick thoughts on this? Then we'll grab Joel's answer on Barcelona.
Just run me through, sorry, the first part of the question then again. I missed the first part.
So who's in a bigger crisis?
Crisis. Okay. Yeah. And between Barcelona or
some team in North London that plays in red.
Yeah. I was hoping you just wouldn't answer that question actually. Who's in a bigger crisis, Arsenal or Barcelona? Well, for me, it's Arsenal. I mean, I don't like using the word crisis. I think it's all a little bit melodramatic. Still one of the biggest clubs in Europe, if not the world. Still a draw. Still a huge stadium. Still some very talented players, etc., etc., etc. But I think the crisis from Arsenal comes in terms of the boardroom and what's going on above the manager. I don't get me wrong. The manager has plenty of questions to answer. You know, he has faults as well. I think he knows that himself. But I don't think he's getting the backing or there's a relationship that's healthy, at least, with that board. And I think until that changes, sadly, this is going to continue. And I do fear that this season is going all a little bit Bruce Rioch to me. Do you know what I mean? It's all going that way. So, yeah, I'm just a bit concerned that this is going to end in tears, whether that be for the manager or whether that be for some of the other players that's still at the club. So I think Arsenal are worse off, but Joel will give us the alternative answer in the voice of Josh. So what did he have to say?
Unfortunately, he agrees with you, Kris, that Arsenal are in a bit more of a team in crisis, but the Barcelona have had a poor summer in general, where obviously they lost one of their best players to a direct rival against their wishes. That would be one Neymar. They also had what was deemed a poor season last year. However, with a few corrections, Barcelona can overcome this period and have a successful season. Joel's certain of it, that really they have a new and innovative coach in Valverde who wants to return them to their favoured style of playing, and he has shown in the first few games of the season that they have made good signings. They got Semedo, Paulinho and Dembele, and not forgetting that they've also won their opening games of the season. I think it's also a fact that people could forget that Barcelona still have an incredibly strong spine of that team. even though you've got the likes of someone like Deulofeu out on the wing, who some may see as not necessarily Barcelona standard, there's still the Ter Stegen, Piqué, Alba, Busquets, Iniesta, Rakitic, Messi and Suarez still in that team, with the right players around them, either those that are arriving or arrived, that Barcelona will be fine this season and will be challenging on all fronts. I think just, in terms of Barcelona's crisis, that it has really stemmed from a lack of trophies last season and a lack of youth players coming through La Masia, a lack of signings in the wake of Neymar leaving, and also the unrest against the board and president. Slowly each of those is being addressed. However, I think, or Joel thinks anyway, that La Masia may be dry for a couple more years. Don't think they're going to produce the same kind of talent that will be necessarily ready for that first team. But in terms of movements against the president, it could be a case of watching this space. This could be a story that bubbles across the season, because there could be an election called at some stage in the near future, depending on how the results go.
It's hard to disagree with Joel, though, isn't it? Really, to be fair, I don't think I can offer a different opinion on that. So fair play to Joel for answering that question. Good one, that as well. What else have we got in our goodie bag?
Let's jump over back to France. Let's have one from my good friend Chris Lodeto at Lion in Purple. He's Orlando fan as well as an Arsenal fan. But
yeah, I speak to him quite a lot, actually.
In your opinions, do you think Monaco will be able to sustain a title challenge this season? There's also a little caveat on whether or not Lamar will end up leaving the club as well.
Okay. I do think they'll sustain a challenge, yes. Win it? No. I just can't see any way that PSG don't win this title. And if they don't, my goodness me, Unai Emery's head will be served up on a platter with freebies, to be honest. So, no, I can't see any way that PSG don't win the title. I just think over the course of the season they'll have too much. But that said, Monaco's transfer business thus far has been absolutely brilliant. More on that obviously on the next pod. But no, I think the transfer business has been fantastic. Keita Balde, the latest signing, what a wonderful deal that is. But I think they'll sustain a challenge, but I'm not sure that it will be enough. As for Lamar, I'm very torn on this one. There's a lot of talk that Liverpool are interested now. Strangely, despite Arsenal seemingly having agreed personal terms in a deal with the player, they've now mysteriously run out of money. Less said, the better. I think if Liverpool are willing to stump up the cash Monaco want, which is probably closer to 80, 90, maybe even 100 million, then yes, he could go. He really could. The only issue is, as we record this the day before the window closes, time. I think that's the big problem. Monaco have probably got enough to sustain letting him go, but I don't think they would at this stage. I really think they'd be mad. So, and of course, the Coutinho deal may hinge on this as well. I think that's going to be key in whether they do. So, I'm a bit torn. But do you think he'll stick around? Do you think Liverpool get their man? Or?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this on the way home from work today, because I'm sad like that. But I was thinking about how they lost Bernardo Silva early in the transfer window and how key he was for them. I think where Arsenal were looking at, they were using that transfer figure and saying, well, Lamar wasn't as necessarily influential as Bernardo Silva was last year. And I think the only way that Lamar goes is if someone gives them, basically grossly overpays for him by putting up money more than Man City put up for Silva, which wasn't it 57 basic and £75 million in total? The deal for Bernardo Silva, something like that. I think
that's close to that, wasn't it? Yeah, certainly sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, which I think it's going to have to be a deal bigger than that gets Lamar out of it. It's going to be that silly money, and I know Arsenal aren't in the business of paying over the odds for a player. Liverpool, perhaps this is a snide remark by saying perhaps they are quite au fait with doing that.
Mm.
But overall, I don't expect him to go. I think the business with Oxlade-Chamberlain is probably the replacement for Coutinho that they've gone with, if Coutinho is the man to leave. We do have a supplementary question on
Go for it.
Monaco as well, from Arian H.
Oh yes,
Who's
Arian's a regular listener. Arian, hello to Arian. Yes.
yeah, who's at Arian H 1999. Just a quick question on Tielemans. He's not starting on Desjardins. Is this a tactical issue, or is there something about it that's just meaning he's not starting?
Yeah, it's not tactical. I think Yuri Tielemans is a immensely gifted young player, and I think he will get plenty of game time for Monaco this season. Every player takes a little bit of time to transition. He's come from Belgium, which is, a decent league, but not quite of the league and the level of Ligue 1, and certainly not the top of Ligue 1. So it's a bit more of a physical Ligue 1 now, and I think he's just taking time to adapt and transition. When he has the one, he's looked really good. He's very, very clever on the ball, very talented. Sort of two-touch player and very, very good at breaking the lines. I think he's going to be a terrific addition. A lot of big clubs were after him. He'll get game times. He will get game times, but I think it will take time before he's a starter. And to be fair, João Moutinho, who's playing that position, has played very well this season. So no, he'll get his chance, and he's definitely one to keep an eye on.
Cool. Let's just go over to Serie A, which I believe will be our last question that I've got in my list. Again from Ariane. Is Pepe Reina good enough to help Napoli win the Scudetto? And if not, who could they, in this short time they've got left, bring in?
If that's his Reina stays
Yes.
as a goalkeeper. I don't see why not. I mean, I know PSG were sniffing, weren't they, around Pepe Reina recently? I don't know if anything is going to come of that. Might be a late deal. The trouble is, can you think of any goalkeepers available that are better?
No, I think that is fundamentally the issue, and whether or not they'll be able to come in and settle quickly enough into this. Especially with Napoli, they're always going to generally outscore their opponent, so the quality of the goalkeeper isn't necessarily the top priority in that squad, unless the goals do dry up. But with the form that the likes of Mertens is in at the moment, that doesn't look to be happening at the moment.
Yeah, I think Reina's fine. I mean, I don't know. I think you look at PSG's goalkeepers. There's a problem. I like Areola, but he's not consistent, and I think Kevin Trapp has been largely a failure. Even Barcelona's goalkeepers. I mean, are you convinced by either of Stegen or Silerson? I'm not personally. So I mean, I think you need a good goalkeeper, but I'm not sure that Reina's any worse than any of those.
No, I do personally like Ter Stegen. I think goalkeepers have also become multifaceted in what they're required to do for the teams now, and the system that they're built around is also defining of how well they're doing. Even just looking in the Premier League at the moment, you can have a look at David De Gea. That Man United defence is built around his weaknesses, so he very rarely needs to come out and try and claim a cross because the cross will never come in. So he's never subjected to having that issues. Conversely, when you look at the likes of Arsenal, where Petr Cech gets, or has been, especially last season, exposed at his near post. So we saw a lot of shots come in and him getting beaten there, and it is a case of making sure that that whole defensive unit is built around making sure that they keep out the goals, and playing to your goalkeeper's strength ultimately is the best way to do that.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. So yeah, it's an interesting question. But no, I think Reina's good enough certainly for Napoli. So yeah, agreed. Okay, have we got any more? I think we've got enough time for maybe 2 or 3 quickies if we can see what we can get out of these.
Yeah, let me just have a look. I believe I had one more. Internet providing, of course, if I can find the one that I want. If I remember rightly, it was from Bobby, and it was regarding Raheem Sterling and Alexis Sanchez.
Oh dear.
So I'm not sure how much transfer talk we want to really get into at this moment, because obviously with the window closing in what is time of recording less than 25 hours,
Mm.
anything we do say could look potentially a little bit silly.
Yeah, I suppose I guess he's asking then, does he see it happening? I presume, or is it that kind of question? I guess.
Yeah, and versus in general,
Mm.
would it be on face value a good deal for Arsenal and City?
Would it be a good deal is a very interesting question. I personally am not a fan of Raheem Sterling. I think there's a lot that he still has left to get his game to a high level. Um, yeah, I just don't. I don't know. I just don't think he's of that level, that elite level. If you know what I mean, he's certainly not Alexis Sanchez level. Is it a good deal though? Potentially it is because Arsenal clearly are having issues getting players in because of money constraints. If they're going to let their arguably their best player go, surely they have to get somebody in to replace. So is that not the argument? Maybe it is. What's your view on it? Are you a fan of it? I just don't personally rate Sterling. I think if you could get Sane, then yeah, we're talking. But Sterling, I'm just not sure. What do you think?
I sit on the opposite side. I really like Raheem Sterling. When Pep Guardiola came into Man City, I thought he'd be that key player that he'd be able to convert into an absolute world beater, because he
Mm,
had all the attributes there. But I I know we were looking at him before he went to Man City as well, but Liverpool generally just tend to refuse to do business with us when it comes to getting one of their players, especially after the whole Suarez thing. But
mm,
I am not too sure on how good a deal it would be. I know Alexis has got a very, very short shelf life left on him in terms of what he could produce in the next couple of years,
mm.
because of the amount of summer football that he has played and will, in theory, be playing in the next few years, coupled with the fact he's 29, that it is a case of we could actually just get one last year out of him before he is completely burnt out. But you do have the fact of the stuff that's off the field, that he is not necessarily becoming a good influence within the dressing room anymore. And it could
Mm.
be a case of trying to get that out while you can.
Joel. Yeah, not our Joel, of course, but yeah, very good. Okay, shall we finish with a question from one of our own then, just to wrap up the show?
Yeah, I know I could probably rant for a while about this, and you might be able to as well. Um, Leicester City have been linked with Andros Townsend.
Mm.
I don't understand why they need him. Do you understand why they need him? Because they have a perfectly serviceable replacement winger if Mahrez goes in Damari Gray.
Mm. Hmm. Um, Damari Gray, I think, is an immensely better player. Like, I think he's got real potential. I think he is a little bit all pace, no brain at the moment. But he showed glimpses last season and glimpses this season already that he's a good player, really really good player. I just think Townsend he's one of those players that he's flattered to deceive for so many years, and he's had good games. You go, oh yeah, there's a player in there, and then he's disappeared for a few games, and I'm just not. Again, he's another one I'm not convinced by. Um, I just wonder. I just wonder if a move like this could rejuvenate him. But surely Palace would have done that. So yeah, for me, no. I think I'd rather keep Damari Gray than gamble on Andros Townsend personally. Would you agree or would you disagree with that?
I'd agree on both fronts that actually it's one of those transfers that doesn't make sense for either side. Uh, Front the ball really does utilise the wings, and
Mm,
once he's got someone like Townsend and Zaha on the field, then I think we'll start to see his style of play really come out. But with Zaha being injured at the moment, that's certainly holding him back. And the fact that I don't think the team is really up to speed yet with what he's trying to do. I think we saw that at Inter as well, that perhaps he's a bit of a slow starter, something you wouldn't necessarily see at Ajax because he's coming into a team that he already knows how it works from the ground up, having gone through the same academy. It's a bit like ex-Barcelona players going on to manage Barcelona. They understand the style of play already, so getting their ideas across is generally very easy because most of their footballing brain and methodology has come from the club that they're already managing. And I think that's the issue that Palace have got, and Frank de Boer's got, that we've seen through his career, that going to other sides that aren't Ajax, that he does need to get some time to help bed in and influence that team.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with every word of that, to be fair. Okay, let me ask you one final question then before we end the show. Of all the English clubs, who do you expect to be busiest? Who do you expect to be least busy? And who do you think needs to be busy? So sort of 3 questions in one, if you will.
Okay, so I think the busiest team in the final day of the window will probably be Arsenal. I think you could almost put a revolving door on London Colney in terms of ins and outs there. You could see an absolute trolley load come in, and certainly a trolley load go out, because I know there's a lot of players that look like your standard deadline day deals that could be leaving the club. I know Kieran Gibbs has already gone, but you've still got the likes of Matthew Debussy, who does look like another team's second or third choice for a player to come in. I know he's on the he's not top of the list, but he is in the list of Brighton defensive reinforcements for a player to come in. Talking about Brighton, I think they'll be one of the least busiest, because I think they only really need to get in one player, and that is a striker. I think all the other teams in the league still have business to do. Perhaps just Manchester City. Depends on the Alexis deal, really. If they really think they can get Alexis over the line, then I think that they could have quite a quiet transfer deadline day. If not,
it's one to keep an eye on, isn't it? I think that's where we're sort of and one thing's for sure, it's going to be a busy old window by the looks of it. We've had a few quiet ones, haven't we, recently? But it seems this year that this is the one that goes through the roof, which of course would be quite apt given the fact that Neymar has done what he's done this summer and all those big deals. I do think we're going to get some quite big moves as well on this deadline day. So yeah, we'll be across it. We will be across it. We're planning to record on Sunday, aren't we?
Yeah, I believe it is. It's some point across the weekend anyway, once the dust has finally settled. And depending on how big the explosion is, that dust will take an awful long time to settle.
Yeah, we might be too busy rebuilding the Emirates after it's been burnt to the ground on Sunday. So we'll stay tuned. But yes, I think I think the plan is to record Sunday, all being well, or at least sort of Monday at the latest. But we'll plan to do Sunday, and we'll hopefully take some of the transfers in and see what we can come up with. So okay. Well, until then, I think we shall leave it there for this week. Once again, our apologies for the pod coming out a little bit later. Those gremlins don't have to get to us. And hey, for a 2-man show, I think we've done rather well to get round six or seven odd leads. So well done us. Little pat on the back. Just a reminder to please visit our sponsors if you have any website or web-based needs. 4 Elements, guys. Do check them out. I'll give Kris and the team a nudge. 4elements.co.uk or 4elementswebdesign.co.uk to give them their full address. Google them, people. They will help you build a lovely website. But until then, I shall just remain to thank obviously the absent team of Ross, of James, and of Joel, and of course of John. But I'll also thank my partner in crime for tonight, Josh, for seamlessly stepping in as a twosome. So thank you very much, Josh, for being a part of this evening.
Not a problem.
Good stuff. And no doubt you and I will be speaking again at the weekend. So until then, thank you very much to our loyal listeners for tuning in. Please do subscribe if you don't already via iTunes, via YouTube. You can get us. You can get us on our website, of course, which is still going along. And don't worry, Mr. Jake Bayliss, I haven't forgotten your blog. I promise one day I'll get that thing up. And of course, you can subscribe via SoundCloud. Leave us a review on iTunes if you get 5 minutes, also, or give us a little thumbs up or a heart on SoundCloud, whatever it is. Please do spread our message. There's a lot of podcasts out this year, and we obviously like to be classed as one of your favourites. So don't forget about us. Don't leave us behind. Spread the word. And if you get one listener that we didn't know tuning in this week, give us his name or her name, and we'll give them a little shout out. All right, so there we go. That is the podcast all wrapped up for this week. So until we speak to you on Sunday, enjoy the transfer deadline day, if that's possible. And if you're an Arsenal fan, take the scissors away. Okay, get your head down, take a deep breath. It'll all be over soon. Well, next May anyway. Keep your beard strong and your glasses trendy. We'll speak to you very soon.